Stories are a communal currency of humanity. A quote from the famous UK author Taher Shah that, in my own words, essentially means that stories are what make us human. We connect and bond with other people through stories. In fact, the human experience is all about storytelling. Stories we share with others can inspire or shape the individuals around us. That's the essence of storytelling and what makes it so important. But what is good storytelling? Lately, I've been asking myself this question. People often say that the story for something is good, but why? Why is the way that they told the story so engaging? Is it because it has plenty of action-filled moments? Is it because there's no shortage of plot twist? Or is it because it has a profound message with a strong narrative behind it? I think these are very good components that could lead to a compelling story, but good storytelling doesn't need all that. In fact, I think it's a lot simpler than that because even the most straightforward stories can be compelling.
遠い記憶をたどれば夕暮れ走る小さな君抱えきれない不安を募らせて家路を急ぐ
I recently finished Utawaremono Prelude to the Fallen, a turn-based visual novel made by Aqua Plus. Before I got into it, I was incredibly intrigued by the game through its music, but after playing it, I found it was even more amazing than I initially thought. The characters were all great, the music was exceptional, and the gameplay was decent, but overall, I loved the story. While the plot twists were surprising and the story itself was solid, I think what really kept me hooked on was how the story itself was told, or rather its storytelling. And I do think that's primarily due to emotional investment, but I think the game does a great job of getting me emotionally invested in the first place. While there's plenty of slice of life scenes in the game, in fact the beginning portion was mostly slice of life. There were no shortage of serious points here and there as the game was mostly about war, but whenever one of these moments comes up, I really find myself on the edge of my seat. Of course, naturally as humans, conflict usually keeps our interest in stories, but with this game it felt different. I wasn't on the edge of my seat because of these conflicts. I was more on edge because I was scared of how it would play out. I would even find myself totally in shock when something happened, but not as a viewer, but as if I was in the world itself. If the game wanted to make me cry, it would. If the game wanted to make me feel angry, it would, because of that emotional investment. I now feel as if the game were my entire world, full of people I know and love. But how does one create that emotional investment? How do you make a real human being care about fictional individuals and a fictional world? It's because they have good storytelling. Uta created a world full of characters with their own lives and struggles we get to see through the dialogue and events, lives we get to witness through the plenty of slice of life moments. They build up the world in such a way that it almost feels real, and even the side characters you begin to love. They make it real through good storytelling, as they tell the story of their world and individual characters to an immersive degree that we even get to know about the most mundane things regarding each character, which in turn makes their world feel super alive, all while staying consistent to each character within the story. Even though some characters don't seem as important to the grand scheme of things, they eventually matter to you because you've seen their entire lives at this point, the good and the bad. So when those same characters are used to drive the story forward, you feel an extra level of depth and nuance to the story because they tell the story in a way that allows you to feel that the world and people are real to you. And yes, there are things like good pacing, plot that makes sense, very interesting narrative, and various other factors that make good storytelling. But if I can't tell a story in a way that has you invested in these characters, the story you're trying to tell won't come across very well, regardless of how good you think it is. For example, my favorite JRPG series is the Trail series, otherwise known as the Kiseki series in Japanese. This game series has amazing and interesting stories throughout the franchise, with amazing plot twists, world building, and pretty profound themes. But at the end of the day, the game's core is its story and its characters. If the series didn't tell its stories in a way that made me care for these characters and care for the world around them, then that emotional investment is gone, and I care less about what the Trail series has to offer. But because they've been able to tell these character-driven and emotionally investing tales, I naturally grew to love the game and its stories. Sure, some games in the series may not be as good as others in some aspects, but because they've made the world feel alive in such a deep way, I want to see what comes next, despite how not as good one game might be. And this is how Utawaremono is handled. Each individual feels not like a character, but person with their own hopes and dreams, people who are willing to risk everything for the ones they love, people who are able to cry and grieve the loss of their friends, people who get angry and frustrated at situations, people who are even irrational or conflicted, and people who have gone through so much suffering that they even mentally break down. The narrative of this game is pretty good, but ultimately I love the story because it treats the individuals who drive it not as fictional characters in a storybook, but as people themselves, and a story is only as good as the people driving it. So you can have an amazing story that's super thought out or methodical. You can have this crazy world building, you can have these awesome themes that sit with you even after you finish the story. But again, ultimately, the stories we love and adore are about these people we resonate with and come to know every step of the way. So if the story is told in a way that you can't care for the people driving it, then why should you care for the story overall? Though I've been told that Prelude to the Fallen is the weakest game in the trilogy, just from its ability to tell a story, it has genuinely captivated me and made me care for the people living in the world. And if this is the level and quality of storytelling in the weakest game, then I already expect great things for the next two games, and I already look extremely forward to playing them. Though I don't know when I will be getting to them, but I look forward to my next visit of this amazing and well thought out world. And I know I already said it, but Prelude to the Fallen genuinely struck a chord with me. And honestly, if you're a fan of turn-based games, visual novels, ARPGs, or just good storytelling in general, I highly recommend this game. It's definitely an emotional ride that's worth getting into. But I've already said plenty enough about how good this game is. That's all for me. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.